Maybe Akihiko fills his THEORYYY meter by waiting his turns and doing nothing.
Oh my god. Yes!
Oh my god.
I've been waiting for this!
Oh my god, that's perfect.
Hey guys, it's Lady, and I want to welcome you to something new to this channel, a little podcast format. So this more casual and personable setup is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, though just haven't had an opportunity to do it yet, but that is also kind of a blessing in disguise to me, since that means the first couple episodes of this young podcast can be dedicated to Persona 3 Reload with some awesome co-hosts / guests along for the ride. So yeah, I'm joined today by two good friends who are also just great creators on this platform in the Mega 10 / wider JRPG sphere, bubbletea and BigKlingy. Hey guys.
Yeah, hey.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm not good at these introductions. I just, you know, when you said you wanted to, you know, do an introduction, in my head I was just like, oh god, this is gonna be so awkward.
It's okay. Like we're all in the same boat, I think, especially because like this is sort of new for all of us on not that like podcasting or conversing is necessarily new to all of us, but like it's a new project, right? So like no problems.
Yeah.
Everyone understands. So this little particular project with the podcast is something all three of us are dubbing Road to Reload, which is actually props to bubbletea on that title. But yeah, so with that all said, I want to open up the question to you guys. Is Persona 3 the first Persona game you've actually played, and how did you actually first hear about this game, or even like the wider Persona or Mega 10 series?
Okay, so I'll go first then, because I remember quite clearly how this all started. It was in 2013. My first exposure to the Persona series was when somebody at my university's anime club brought in Persona 4 Arena, and I saw people playing that, and I clearly remember somebody struck up a conversation with me about how weird the concept of evokers was. And just how strange it was they were able to get away with something like that. And then later on at my anime club, they showed the first episode of the Persona 4 anime, and when they passed around a form that asked you which of these anime do you want to see more of, I immediately wrote Persona. But so at the time though, Persona 4, like, you know how everyone complains about them milking P5 now?
Yeah.
At that time, imagine all of that, but even more milking, and that was P4. Like, P4 had, like, 2 animes, the arena games, like, all the spin-offs. A lot of people were tired of P4 being milked, and I'd just seen so much kind of praise for P4 going around that I decided to be a rebel and start with P3 instead.
Oh my god. That to be honest, I just wanted to, like, briefly... comment on that is so relatable to me, in the sense where like the Persona 4 anime is also how I first heard of the series. What happened is that like when it was first airing in like 2010, 2011, I forget exactly. That was around the time that I was still sort of like keeping up with, or not necessarily keeping up, but at least like paying attention to what was airing seasonally with anime. And I just thought like, hey, that looks pretty chill. That's like an interesting premise. I actually remember watching like the first maybe like 3 or 4 episodes, but then like stuff like a lot of other stuff for school and other activities kind of piled on, and I couldn't really continue like watching a ton of the stuff I started watching that season. But then, like, fast forward 3 years, oh my god, to this day, the only other person I knew in real life, IRL friend, who likes Persona and, like, actually plays Persona, I used to go to their house with a couple other friends. We would play Mario Party together. And then, yeah, there's other times where I just be at their house. They were like playing Persona 4, and I thought, whoa, that looks so familiar for some, like, it feels so familiar. What the heck? Like, why do I feel like I know this? And then I realized, like, later they were like explaining, well, like, it had like an anime, and it's pretty, like, it was pretty popular, even for, like,
you mean
anime
they made
style.
a game? You mean they made a game based on that anime?
But yeah, that's how I first got into, like, Persona series. But the first game I ever played, because I would only just, like, watch them play, like, Persona 4 a little bit that summer. But, like, the first one I played myself was Persona 3, the summer after. So in 2013, and they lent me Fez, and that was awesome. That was my first Persona game, Persona 3. But I was introduced by the Persona 4 anime too.
Can I shout a quick question to the comment section potentially?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm genuinely curious. Did anybody here actually play vanilla P3? Non-FES, like full-on vanilla P3? Because I genuinely would like to know.
Same, for sure.
Alright, so Persona 3 was my first game, but the reason I played it was ultimately because of how much Persona 5 was popping off. But here's the thing though, I kind of already subconsciously knew about Persona without actually realizing it. And the more and more I think back on it, the more I sort of like recognize Persona in like past things I've experienced. You see, at first I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I started playing Persona because of Persona 5. But after a while, like once I got to like Persona 4, I was just kind of like, wait, this Chie character, they like referenced her in this anime that I watched in high school called No Game No Life. Except
I know what you're talking about.
They censored out they put the censor bar over her eyes to avoid copyright. But yeah. But here's the thing though,
God.
even long before that, there was still some sort of like residual Persona recognition in my memory. Because I had actually heard I'd actually heard some of the soundtrack before I even knew the game existed. I heard Want to Be Close and Master of Shadow before, used as background music in YouTube videos. And not just any YouTube videos, okay? I was watching, what were they? I don't know how to describe them. The best way I can sort of illustrate the idea to you is think like, okay, Pokemon fanfiction, but conveyed through the use of Pokemon ROM hacking tools, and then uploading that to YouTube.
I think I know what you're talking about.
That sounds so cool.
I think I've seen some of those.
It kind of gives me the vibes of like, cause I know that you, like, I think both of you guys were kind of into like when people used to make like the fan sort of RPG maker games, but like kind of include their like own story into it. That's what it kind of sounds like. But then, but like they were using like P3 music in that. That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah, they used Want to Be Close and Master of Shadow a lot, and I just kind of thought, oh, you know, these are cool songs. And then when I first played Persona 3 and heard those songs, I just sort of immediately recognized them. And I was just like, huh, I feel like I didn't remember where I heard them before until like I started playing Persona 4, but I did recognize the songs, and there was actually, I don't know, I did feel a bit of nostalgia, ironically, from playing this game, and maybe in some other areas too, despite it being like my first time playing it. A similar thing kind of happened with me with Final Fantasy X, except not really because I knew Final Fantasy X existed. The song that plays in the intro of the game, At Xanarkand, was used a lot in memes. Like, it's a very memeable song because it's just kind of like, you know, the haha so sad type of jokes. Yeah. But I didn't know it was from Final Fantasy X until I saw Clement's retrospective of that game.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment really quickly, like briefly, like Bubbletea's story kind of reminds me of like, or sorry, not reminds me, but like, I think it's just so fitting that out of any series, it's like Persona and the Jungian whole like collective unconscious. It seems so fitting that it's just like, I knew this from something. Oh my god, I heard this before. Where did I hear it before? And it's just like, yeah, that, I don't know, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that seems so like lore fitting wise for a Jungian based like, or influenced like series. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Klingy.
No, I was just gonna say that like that whole thing with the music, that was I won't go more into this because I don't want to take things too off topic, but that was me with the Trails series, particularly Silver Will. People loved using Silver Will in fan games and like fan videos at the time, and it wasn't until like Trails in the Sky that I was like, oh, that's where that song came from.
I think Azure Arbitrator was also used in like a lot of the like Osu or like the rhythm, like a lot of other videos as well. So just as a little side note.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like with that all covered and everything, that's like, it's so interesting. We all have like a different journey and story into like Persona 3 and Persona series in general. But speaking of like when we finally got to play the game, what about Persona 3 like really stood out to you, I guess, at the beginning, or just initial impressions in general? Like, did you like it from the very start, or did it have to grow on you, you know?
So if I could just go in with something, because there's a particular part, I feel, very early in Persona 3 that I think really drew me in. And that is the first day after school, where you just have to go to the police station with Junpei. And like technically that's all you're supposed to do, and it's pretty quick if you go straight there, but you are able to explore basically all of Tatsumi Port Island with Junpei following you. And you can go around and examine all of the different like shops and like the shrines and everything, and Junpei has unique comments on basically everything. And all the while you're hearing, When the Moon's Reaching Out to Stars, the overworld theme, which still is just one of my favorite atmospheric overworld themes in any RPG. Like, that song still gets me so nostalgic hearing it, as well as the school theme, Want to Be Close. And you can even meet some of the social link characters before you know they're social link characters, and like even some plot relevant characters as well. And it's just like that whole first time just walking around like the city and just getting to know the place. It really got me in because it kind of made me feel like I was actually visiting like this city. It's kind of why, like, even though technically Persona 5's overworld is bigger and has more to do, Persona 3 still probably has my favorite, like, explorable, and it's part of why I can't really get into Portable, because, like, Portable removing that hurts a lot, in my view.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's something I wanted to comment on about how, like, Persona in general, like, while it might not be, you know, people will talk about how like certain series do NPCs better and everything, and something that I think Persona always has done really well, in my opinion, is that like they add enough to kind of give flavor to the world, without updating so many times that you sometimes feel like it's a little too much, right? So
like there are definitely a few little subplots that go on between nameless student NPCs in that game. And like if you played the game, you will remember some of them. But it's like, like you said, they're not like, they don't update like every single day.
Yeah, it will be like mostly like every single arc, it might update once or twice. which is a nice, I think, like, yeah, it's just like a nice balance, because I'm just gonna briefly tangent about how like people often bring up how Trails has great NPCs, and Klingy and I, like, we both love the NPCs in Trails. Like we actively talked like all of them, but some of those games, especially the big ones like Cold Steel 2 and 4, it gets a little too much. The amount of updates that like they have. So anyway, that was just a little side note. But yeah, how about you?
I actually have a comment on NPCs as well. So sure. it's honestly kind of surprising how far just regularly changing NPC dialogue can go a long way with a very small explorable world, because Cybershell kind of made a video kind of explaining this phenomenon, but with that game specifically. And honestly, you could say that about Persona 3 and probably a lot of other games as well, but I would say I would relate it most to Persona 3 because A, personal bias, and B, both games have pretty small worlds consisting of like a very small handful of maps.
Yeah.
Because in the grand scheme of things, the grand scheme of things, like the worlds of either of those two games, they're not like huge or anything like that. They're pretty small and self-contained, but it does very much feel like an actual place being inhabited by real people.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah.
For sure.
Something I actually quite like about Persona 3's social link system that the later games don't really do is Persona 3 has a lot of times where you meet one social link through another.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's much rarer in later Persona games. Like, I think there's like 2 or 3 of them that do that in later ones, but 3 has a lot of social links that do that.
Because I was about to say, doesn't Persona 4 kind of do that a little bit too?
It does it with the sports club and I. So there's I in the sports club, and I think that's really the main one I can remember. But
isn't there also the death one?
There was also
the death one in the
Hisano,
hospital.
Oh yeah, that one too. Yeah. So there's a couple of them, but P3 has like a lot. Like I, to the point where like when I was like watching back footage of it at some time, I was like, oh, I forgot that you met Bebe, like the foreign exchange student, through the old couple social link.
Yeah, I see. Okay, yeah, I totally see what
Tanaka
you mean now.
through. You hear about Tanaka through the Hermit social link. You hear about the Tower social link through Yuko.
Yeah. It's just I like that whole idea of like meeting people through other people and like how those connections sort of expand.
For sure.
It is very
realistic.
It
makes the world feel it makes the world feel more like personable to the player too. For sure. Yeah. That's so like since we're on the topic of like social links in general, like is that I assume like that's one of the big mechanics that kind of just really stood out to you guys when you were first like playing or starting the game? Because I know for me it was.
Yeah. It's really weird for me because my first time playing Persona 3 was with a max social link guide, and even in Fest those max guides are pretty restrictive. So, like, I wasn't really, like, actively engaging with the social link mechanics because I was just doing what a guide told me to. But the reason why I did that is because I felt like I wouldn't be able to judge these characters fairly unless I saw, like, all of their content in the same run. So, like, I wanted to fully experience all of these social links, and then I could decide which of them were my favorites. And so it also made it easier for me to focus on learning the gameplay and learning like Tartarus and the battle system because I didn't need to worry about the socials at the same time. But so to me, like the social link thing as a mechanic was not really something that I really engaged in. But I did really enjoy this, but because I also play a lot of Fire Emblem, to me, social links are really just Fire Emblem supports, except with 10 conversations instead of 3.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Like, that's kind of how I always saw them. But, like, that's not a bad thing at all. Like, quite the opposite. And I'm so glad that every rank is going to be fully voiced in Reload. Like, that's something I'm really, really excited for. I'm very surprised Persona hasn't done that yet. Because, like if I could go on a brief, like Fire Emblem tangent slightly, like, I personally believe that fully voice-acted supports did so much for Fire Emblem. It's part of the reason why a lot of people, like, really don't like Engage's cast, and they think that Engage's cast, like, too sort of one-note and tropey, and I feel like I'd probably think that too if they weren't fully voice-acted. But the fact that they are just instantly, and now I'm wondering, like, is full voice acting gonna actually make me like Moon and Magician in Reload? Like, that'd honestly be cool.
I would probably say so, because I would, like, just from, like, a perspective of when you're getting to know people or getting to know someone, it's like, the more you actually, like, spend time with them actively, like, in person, is probably going to endear you the most. And considering
also
the
you're
fact
actively
that, like,
listening to
audio
them.
Yeah, because in previous games, like, only certain ranks or, like, only certain parts of ranks would be voiced, right?
Yeah.
And so you're not getting the full, like, feeling, like, experience of, like, literally basically sitting with someone and, like, listening to them talk to you. And so it's just, like, it's gonna be so cool to feel that, like, wow, I am in the room. I'm getting to know this person on a personal level because I hear every single thing they're saying spoken out loud.
Okay, so to put that more bluntly, basically, old social links, a lot of it just came down to the player's reading comprehension, and if you know a little something about this fan base, their reading comprehension isn't very good. But that's entirely different. Like, just reading what the characters are saying is very different from actually listening to them and sort of active. You feel more actively engaged in a conversation with them, and I feel like that will do a very good service to Persona 3 social links. And honestly, it's well-deserved too, because I personally feel like Persona 3 social links are kind of underrated. Because the thing about...
they're all really good, in my opinion.
The thing about... not to throw shade at Persona 5, because I like Persona 5, it's a really good game. But something that kind of sort of bothered me a little bit about Persona 5's confidants... Like, here's the thing, none of them, I feel, are outright bad, but at the same time, it very much feels like they're trying to make every character and every confidant just sort of universally likable. And that is, and that's not,
I totally
and
see
that
what
is
you
just
mean.
not, and that is just not a good thing for something like a social sim. Because the whole point of a social sim is that you're supposed to have a very diverse cast that, you know, every character clicks with, you know, different types of people. People are going to, like, pick their favorites. Sure. And that's kind of just the way I played the game the first time. Like, you know, there's a handful of social links that you spend all your time with, you max them out. And then you got the other ones you get to maybe rank 5 or 6 or maybe even 7, and then you got the ones that you don't really touch very often, because that's very much how it is in real life too, because realistically speaking, you are not going to like everyone equally.
Like I really like the way you talked about, like, the differences between how Persona 5 kind of tried to make every single confidant feel like more universally, like, maybe, like, relatable, while Persona 3, it's really nice to see, like, it's just a much greater variety of like personalities, especially ones where like they're not afraid to kind of give you people who do not make a good first impression. That's the thing that I really liked about that game, is that I'm like
because like what you said before about how the game is not afraid to have characters who make bad first impressions, like this is something that I genuinely love about Persona 3's cast, and it doesn't just apply to the social links, it's also the party too, very much, is that basically, if anyone knows that ProZD skit of like trying to convince your friend that a character gets better 50 episodes later, it's
the Ava one.
Yeah, the one with like Binji-kun and that one. So
Shinji.
Now there's pee and poop everywhere.
And that one. Yeah. So basically, every character in Persona 3 is that. Like almost the entire cast, and it's like. It's just like that word of being not afraid to do that. It just resonates with me because I do feel like bubbletea said, sometimes I feel like some games like Persona 5, they play it a little safe, and this is where I get a little bit like cynical corporate-y in my head and think they're like, okay, we have to make sure these characters are marketable. We have to make sure that like, you know, fans want to consume media of these characters. So they need to focus on making them all, like, likable and have good first impressions. But, like, when you give somebody a character who, like, I've had so many characters that I've experienced in any media, when on my first impression, I was like, wow, I'm not gonna like this character, and then, like, way later, I'm like, oh, okay, they're actually, like, my favorite character in this whole show now. It just, to me, feels so much more satisfying when you can see something like that play out, than if you've got, like, if it doesn't. And P3 is just, it's why I've always stand Yukari and Ken, because I feel like both of them just develop so well through the whole game. Just the contrast between how they are at the start and how they are later on, it's just so amazing to see that.
And to sort of bring it back to the topic of initial impressions, all right, I might as well give my take on that. Did I like it from the get-go, or did it have to grow on me? All right, so the first 2 months of the game, I just kind of thought, interesting. But then after Fuka becomes Navigator and Mitsuru joins the front line, my impression of the game got a lot better. This is the point in the game where you really start to get better personas, more of the social links start to become available to you. You get better tactic commands for your party members.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
I think that's around about the time you get access to the compendium as well, because P3 is one of those weird games where you spend like the first entire arc with no compendium.
Okay, it's the first month without the compendium. After you beat the Priestess Shadow, you get the compendium. But yeah, like I would say once you get past June, this is the point in the game where a lot more things really start to open up to you. Like I said, better personas, more of the social links become available. You get better tactic commands for your party members, and like that's really where the potential of the turn-based combat in that game really starts to take off. Yeah. You get more challenging boss fights, and party members started joining more rapidly. Like you get you basically have your finalized set of characters by the halfway point in the game. And I always enjoyed how varied the characters were in terms of like their skill sets. The first 2 months are definitely the slowest part, and it's also where a lot of people who don't warm up to it quick enough tend to drop the game. But if you make it past June, it really picks up, totally worth the time. And I feel as though, to sort of go off on a little side tangent, I feel as though nowadays people are really in a rush, or maybe they're just really starving to experience as much media as they can. That's the vibe I kind of get when I hear people complain about the pacing of the game, or the ones that drop it before it really picks up. Like, remember back when stories were allowed to be slow-paced? It wasn't a bad thing back then. Was anyone in 2006 complaining about the pacing of Persona 3? Like, was anyone complaining about the was anyone complaining about how long Dragon Ball Z was back then, or fucking
like the filler?
Inuyasha.
Like people still didn't necessarily like love the filler, but back then, like no one was really like super like compared to the decade now. Where people are just like filler fucking suck, you know, like
everything, every anime has to be like 13 to 26 episodes long.
Yeah,
like
I feel just that. Only that, right? I see what you mean though. Like I feel like it is a reflection though, for better or for worse, of like the fact that everyone is so connected nowadays in like social media aspect, if you want to the fandom, right? Like you can interact with people on Reddit, on forums, on the like Twitter and everything. And I think the fact that like a lot of people want to capitalize on the conversation when it's still hype is kind of unfortunately adds to that, right? Like it adds to that feeling of like, I need to rush through the game as quickly as I can. And then people are just feeling like, why is the first 2 months so freaking long? And it's just
it's literally like this one TikTok I saw where the guy was literally like, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is about the length of a 48 episode anime, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I don't know, I'll have to send that to you at some point. I don't know, the only real
I just started EP, just
the only real pacing issue, alright, the only real pacing issue I saw was with Ken and Aegis's character arcs. Ken's was like a little too fast. Or no, it was really it was totally actually agree. I take that back. It was really fast. Too fast. And Aegis's character arc, it's very backloaded. Like for most of the game, you really don't get much out of her for the vast majority of the game until like December.
The last like exactly 2 months, right? Yeah.
What I was gonna say is like it's like with Aegis, it feels like she's like introduced like mid game, then like barely anything happens, and then suddenly in the last 2 months, she just becomes a completely realized character arc.
To sort of wrap up that point before I forget, so when I see people online fucking saying, Persona 3, nothing happens until near the end of the game, I feel like these people are mostly just, because a lot of people love Aegis, and I feel as though this is kind of reflective of that. Like, to a lot of people, Aegis just is Aegis just is, like, Aegis just is the themes and motifs of the game. Like, she's just sort of like the embodiment of all of that, and people give Aegis a little too much weight, and those are probably the people saying, oh, nothing happens till near the end of the game. For the most part, I felt it was appropriate for what I was experiencing in life at that time, you know, sort of going through that grind. Like, I wasn't in high school, I was in college, but, you know, I oddly enough, like, I always tell people this, people who want a college setting Persona game, like, alright, cool, like, interesting idea, but, like, honestly, it would not be too much different from Persona 3, because in Persona 3, you don't have parents, and you live with roommates, and you, for the most part, you have the freedom to kind of like do whatever you want. Like you can go outside at night, and it's just like, oh, do you want to spend your time at this place until fucking midnight? And it's like I can just go out until midnight. All right, cool.
Like you're also
like tired all the time, and the only real issue that I took with the life sim part of the game was lack of nighttime activities. And,
I totally see what you mean.
Oddly
there's like nothing to do at night.
And oddly enough,
you max out all the stats.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Persona 4, at least the original, did not make it any better. It debatably got worse. The original, not Golden.
Yeah, because Golden added all the different like nighttime like activities, like ability to go out, right, and actually do like more like part-time jobs or like stuff like that. So I see what you mean though. Like there's just freedom in Persona 3 that like is given to like the typical like college experience or person. So it's not like too different in like feeling, like vibes, right? Like I get what you mean. So going back to, sorry, I wanted to say like, so I know that like bubbletea brought up how like it kind of just sort of P3 sort of felt like it resonated with you and where you were like in life at the time. And I'm just kind of, wondering like if we want to, I think it would be nice to sort of expand on that a little bit if all of us are willing to. Like how did it really resonate with you personally, whether it was like during like the actual time you were playing it or like later, you know, reflecting on it in hindsight? Because I know for me personally, like it also kind of just really was like one of those like perfect games at the perfect time kind of thing.
So for me, it was kind of like a perfect game at the perfect time, but less in terms of like themes and stuff, and more for just being a really, really good game. Like my general reaction when I first started playing this was like, holy crap, where has this series been my whole life? Like I need to play more of this. But it was only a little later that some of the themes really started to resonate with me, and that was because, to go just a little bit personal here slightly, so in end of 2012, which was before I played P3, my grandfather passed away. And then at the end of 2016, my grandmother did. And it was my grandmother in particular, and seeing the way that my different relatives reacted to her passing, particularly in the following months, it started to remind me a lot of how, in a lot of ways, Persona 3, there's many themes of Persona 3. It's a lot about, like, enjoying life, about, like, the kind of relationships you find, but it is also very much about how people grieve and how people react to death, and also, I like that Persona 3 isn't afraid to show some people getting a little bit questionable in terms of this is more the answer, but it kind of applies a little bit to the original too. And in some ways, I think some of the antagonists of the original story, like Strega, relate to these themes too, in that, like, not everybody grieves in a particularly healthy way. And I'll just say that I did kind of see that a little bit in my family, in some of the years following me playing the game, and it gave me a very, because I believe, it was about 2016 was the time that I was uploading Persona 3 on my channel. So that was around the second time I was doing a full playthrough of the game. And with all of that context from what was going on in my life, I could appreciate how it dealt with these themes a lot more. I don't want to get into anything because this podcast is sort of also aimed at people who might not have played P3 before, so I don't want to spoil anything in the main plot. But I will just say that I do like, there's a lot of things in the game, like, as well, like Apathy Syndrome, like many of the fantastical things in Persona, is a metaphor, let's just say.
Yeah, for a lot of things, for sure. Oh, yeah, like, thanks for sharing, you know, that, like, I do really hope that, like, this podcast, like, it really, like, I hope you guys feel as comfortable as possible to, like, you know, share really personal things, because I think that also resonates with people when they hear people's stories, you know?
Yeah, so, can I just say, like, just one final thing regarding that? So, like, me and my mum got to my grandfather's hospital room exactly, like just in time for him to pass away. Like, my mum actually held his hand as he faded, like, as he breathed his last breath. Like, the timing was just absolutely perfect. We got there right when it happened. And we were the only two family members to be in the room when he passed. I'll just say that moment right there, P3, there are some times in P3 where I really felt a similar vibe to that, in that, like, in the art book interview in particular, the director talks about how many people, and this is a kind of a theme of Persona 3, talk about, like, how they would, like, this is a little morbid, but again, P3, what their ideal way to die is. And he said the vast majority of people that he spoke to said that they would like to die. In my mind, I like to think how my grandfather did, just surrounded by family. And that is something that you do see in elements of P3, both in the social, definitely in some of the social links as well.
First of all, I just want to say, like, wow, the fact that I think you were able to get there, like you and your mom were able to just like get there in like the final moments, like on one hand, I'm really sorry, you know, loss is not easy for I think everybody, but at the same time that's like very powerful, because I can resonate with the fact that like I was also able to be there in like my mom's like final like moments as well, and this was like 6 months after I finished playing Persona 3, and she was like bedridden and sick for like about, for sure, like the last year of her life, so that was like between 2012 and 2013, like summer-ish. But like, yeah, overall I don't think it's a bad thing, like as someone who, so I have some like personal experience like having volunteered for like hospice slash like end of life like people, like visitation with people and families, and I think it is honestly something I would hope that our society would be more open to talking about, right? Like I know that a lot of people don't want to think about, right, like the fact that everyone is gonna die eventually, and everything, but it is very important, I think, to know like how would like that person, how do they want to die? Right?
So could I just say one thing here? This is another thing where I'll bring up again the interview with like Soejima in the art book, is that he said, and this is something that like it just really hit me when I read this, that's what the Dark Hour is. Like the metaphor of the Dark Hour is that people don't want to talk about death, that it's this thing that everyone knows is there, but nobody wants to address it directly. It's like a 25th hour in the day that people just want to think passes, and then that's it. They don't have to think about it again. And that it doesn't affect them until it does start affecting them. And like you know, how with the Dark Hour, the moment that you're in the Dark Hour once, like then it's there constantly. So I love the way that Persona uses metaphors in its storytelling, like in its like just the fantastic, how like part of what makes Persona 3, or not 3, well, all of Persona a really unique example of urban fantasy to me, and maybe one of the best urban fantasies that I've seen, is that it's not just modern day but with magic.
It's not just like Harry Potter, right? Like that kind of thing.
All of the fantastical stuff in it is very clearly, they are all metaphors for real life issues and real psychological things. And that's what I love about it.
So in terms of themes, while I do greatly appreciate the mortality side of the themes, and that's probably like the most prevalent and obvious one that people point out, the way the game resonates with me is more so on, it's less on the mortality side of things, and believe it or not, like, this is just sort of a thing that I realized more in retrospect, like, maybe a couple years after playing the game. I sort of relate more to the Apathy Syndrome side of things more than like the death part of it, where it's just sort of like, you know, just like what exactly drives you to live, like what is your reason to live, and if you don't have something like that to like, if you don't have that drive, then you know you're basically just a shell.
You're like you're the
you're
lost.
A husk of a human shell. So, and I guess most of my appreciation for Persona 3 is more on a meta, in more of a meta sense, because I could echo the sentiment about the narrative and the story itself, because I'm sure people get the point by now.
Yeah.
Like so I could literally talk about it all day, but I'm not going to. So I kind of want to talk more about that sort of meta aspect of my appreciation, which is honestly far greater than my appreciation for just the story. To me, Persona 3 represents a lot of things. For one, it encapsulates an era I wasn't able to enjoy to the fullest extent. A lot of games I wanted to play during the 2000s, like, I either just couldn't because I didn't have a PS2 or a GameCube, or, like, I think after a certain point, my parents just straight up stopped buying video games for me, and I wasn't allowed to buy them for myself. I wasn't allowed to buy much of anything for myself until college, to be honest. The way the game just is the 2000s really struck a chord with me. It also represents it actually represents a better era of my life too. For context, I first walked into college orientation my freshman year, a year before I even touched this game. I was so uninterested. Like, literally Persona 3 protagonist arriving in Tatsubi Port Island. I was not
college. Like you were just like, you were totally not interested. Okay.
Yeah, wow. I was just, based on what all the adults kept telling me growing up, they kept telling me shit like, oh, when you get to college, you have to study 40 hours a week, and you can't get away with this and that when you get into college. And it's just like, wow, college sounds fucking terrible. I don't know if I want to be in college. Like, they kind of just made it out to be something that I didn't think I was going to enjoy. I thought my life was just going to be nothing but studying. Like, they only portrayed it as like a negative. Is that what, like, everyone was just, like, your teachers in high school and, like, everybody made it sound to be, like, a very, like, negative experience? Okay. Like, not so much, like, the college students I knew at the time definitely made it seem a lot better, but, like, I didn't spend most of my time with actual college students when I was, like, still a kid.
Yeah, because you're still a high schooler, like, right? Yeah. Totally understandable.
And so I didn't actually know the reality of it. So, anyways, freshman orientation. I was instantly fed up with the seemingly manufactured enthusiasm of, like, the upperclassmen, you know, at the orientation, like, sort of, like, in charge
the leaders.
of, like,
oh my god.
Yeah, just sort of just, like, in charge of, like,
NGL,
well,
I'm
orienting
like, I'm
us.
kind of one of those
like,
people.
I was just kind of like, they were like, oh my god, aren't you guys so excited? You're gonna start college and all that, and I was just like, wow, shut up. I really don't like hearing you talk.
This is like, that is a complete blast from the past, because I totally forgotten, but I'm not even in the same country as you two, and I had that experience too. I had this really, like, eccentric, like, upperclassman showing us around the whole campus, and I never saw or talked to him again, like, the entire rest of university. It was just like one surreal experience that just happened on orientation, and then that's it.
It really depends on, like, your experience, because it's really interesting. Like, I love hearing, like, all your stories about how, like, both of you would kind of say you sort of, like, could resonate or relate to, like, the Persona 3, like, protags sort of, like,
the protagonist, the scenario, like, the scenario he's placed in.
Scenario,
yeah.
Okay. Like the apathy syndrome kind of thing. Yeah, that makes so much sense, you know? Like, that's what I love about the Persona games, is that, like, it's relatable for different people in different ways, right?
Yeah, but to continue the cinematic parallels I'm making between my life and this video game.
Yeah, go
ahead. It did get,
it's
obviously,
really
freshman year of college, it did get better because, you know, I met certain people there. I started meeting more people, more like-minded people. Like, more people who were into the things that I was into, more than I had ever met in my life. Because, like, my high school was very sports-minded, and I was just not into that. And literally the only reason I didn't like transfer schools or anything like that is because my mom was very set on me going to a Catholic school, and all the Catholic schools in my area were basically the same, very sports-minded type places. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not my thing.
Mm-hmm. Is it also like, because a lot of those schools are kind of small too, right? Like enrollment-wise, compared to like the public big schools. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say I didn't have friends in high school. I had like a couple friends, and one of them even ended up going to the same college as me. I was sort of afraid that I wouldn't. Yeah. I was sort of afraid that I wouldn't be able to hang out with him as much anymore. But I actually ended up like college. Honestly, like I ended up growing closer with him because of college, because of like that freedom that I had to just like sort of do whatever I want outside of class, and you know, it's actually funny, like, he actually ended up having more trouble, making friends with people within his major than I did. It wasn't until, like, maybe halfway through college when he started, like, actually mingling with people within, like, his own, like, classes.
His own department.
His own department. Because, like, for a while, he would just hang out with me and the people in my major. And he was always welcome there, but, you know. But yeah, like I slowly started to warm up to the college experience, just that lifestyle more. And when I actually discovered Persona 3 and started playing it, I was experiencing basically the peak of my college years, which was sophomore year for me. It was the point in my life where I really started to become more social than I've ever been in my life. And my grades were kind of at their best at that point. So I really just relate to the game in pretty much, like, I don't know, like, I don't know what level you would really classify this as, but, like, the social aspect, the protagonist and the scenario he's placed in, just a closed-off guy starting his new life and learning to appreciate the general presence of people. I got tired a lot like he did because of course it's college. I hung out around similar places like in the game. Ramen nights were fun, strolling the mall, or just chilling at people's dorms.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's just like it's basically just like learning to enjoy, like, and also something I don't want to assume this is like how it was, but like something that I really loved about Persona 3 as well is that like it really, because it's a social sim, it really highlights like the beauty and like enjoyment of life isn't always big events. Like it's also just the really tiny small things that of just like literally just being in the company of other people, or just like something that always really resonated with me for like Junpei and Mitsuru is just like how excited they are for literally, like, there's an NPC line in like one of the later, to like, not to spoil a huge thing, but he basically just says like, oh my god, this might be my, like, this cup noodle might be my last. I love fucking cup noodles. Damn, this thing is beautiful. And I'm just like, personally, I've always kind of been that way because of my mom's influence and like just like the way she was. Like I admire her so much, and just like her philosophy, I think she was trying to pass it on to like me and other people even when she was sick, is that like there's this thing in like the West that is kind of, I think, not exactly explained the best always. It's called ikigai in Japanese, and it's usually meant in a way where it's like you find out like something you're good at, but also like what you love to do, but also like it's just finding your way of life. But I think people don't explain it correctly in that, like, to Japanese people, it means like you can find ikigai anywhere. Like anywhere I am in life is my ikigai. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's basically like this feeling of like being present in the moment. like to just and because my mom was like that, even when she was sick, I remember this, like every morning, like she could not walk by herself. Like I remember having to prepare breakfast for her when like her caretaker wasn't always around or available to be there on a certain day. And I remember every morning she would just be super happy to see the same, it was crazy too, like on a like coincidental level, but there was like the same lizard and bird that would like come outside of our kitchen window, like onto the freaking like wall in our backyard. And they were always there at like the same time of the day. And like the bird didn't like attack the lizard or whatever. It was just like, they were just there. And my mom just noticed that every morning. She's like, wow, they're here again. It's so beautiful. And I'm just like, holy shit. Like I learned a lot from like my mom to be very like, just to kind of like be present in the moment. And so that's something that I personally resonated with a lot from Persona 3, is that like despite all of the topic about like death and like the mortality, the kind of like the theme or like sort of like the takeaway or the lesson is what you guys were talking about too, is that like you learning to love or like at least enjoy aspects of life that you might not have thought about before or tried to experience before, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Because it's sort of, so, like, this gets me into something else that, like, it always bothered me, and this was back when I first played P3, and I think in part it was a backlash reaction to P4, and its popularity at the time. There were all these people at the time, and interestingly, a lot of them were also kind of diehard mainline Mega 10 fans, but there were so many people who would just say, oh, Persona 3 is so good because it's so dark, and like so tragic and dark, and it's not like that bright, happy Scooby-Doo Persona 4, and then like, I'm just like, when I play P3, that. I'm just like, dude,
it's
like,
not as dark or oppressive
at least from my
as people hype it up to be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually a pretty chill, laid-back game most of the time.
Persona 3, you said it exactly. Persona 3 is a far more uplifting and positive game than you might think. And that's one of the reasons why I like it. As a side note, I personally feel Persona 4 is a lot darker than people say, but that might be a subject for a different podcast.
We'll definitely talk about it in the future.
If Persona 4 ever gets a remake.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's a different topic for another day.
But anyway, it's just something that I wanted to get off my chest. Like it's part of why another reason I enjoy Persona 3 so much is that it takes like themes that seem dark on the surface, but actually turns them into something very. It's a cliche to say life affirming, but I definitely describe P3 that way.
For sure. Yeah, I would describe it that way too. I did, on a funny note though, I love how like you guys were explaining the like orientation people and stuff. I think that's so funny because I'm just like, I'm kind of, I was like that person. I'd probably annoy if we met. So if we met in college, I would be the really annoying person. Yeah, they'll be like, who is this fucking annoying upperclassman who like is hyping it up too much? So that's just funny to me.
So are you guys ready for part 2 of my answer? Because that was only part 1. All right, I'll try to like not drag it on for too long. So to answer the broader question of what the game means to me, and I guess that kind of just boils down to what makes a game meaningful to me in general. To me, a game is most meaningful when I want to come back to it. Persona 3 is a game I can't help but come back to a lot. For my very first playthrough, I played the whole game fair and square up until Nyx. Final boss spoilers, by the way. Up until Nyx, who seemed impossible to me at the time. I used cheats just to get the ending, just to see the ending, but of course I was not satisfied with that at all. Like I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed the ending, but but I didn't really feel at all satisfied or fulfilled at that point when completing the game. But you see, instead of just going back, grinding, and beating the final boss fair and square, you know what I did? I decided to replay the whole game again because it was only by the end of the game that I realized how much content I missed on. Like, how much content I missed out on. I never touched weapon fusion, which is now one of my favorite mechanics in Persona 3. I realized I never found or started the Hierophant social link, and because of that, that means I never got to start the Temperance social link either. Temperance is locked behind getting to a certain rank in Hierophant, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
So like, it was so funny, like, throughout the game, whenever I would fuse a Temperance or Hierophant persona, it's like, oh, you have no rank bonus with this persona.
Literal
Do you still
rank
want to
0.
fuse it? And I'm just like, huh, you know, why isn't there a Hierophant or Temperance social link? And I was just, and then I found out, oh, there is. I just never went to the bookstore because it's just like, oh, I'm not really much of a reader. I mean, hell, in real life, I probably wouldn't have like gone into that place. I wouldn't have, if I were actually the protagonist in his shoes, I would not have really thought to step in there. I would have just gone to the manga cafe
are a
instead.
vibe, though. Just saying.
Like, so.
But understandable.
I also never did the Elizabeth dates or fusion requests, which barred me from fusing a lot of personas. When I got to the end of the game, I immediately wanted to play the game over again. I didn't get to do everything, obviously, because I wasn't following like a max social link guide, but I was able to do a lot more. I felt much more fulfilled by it. Sure, I could have been happy with just seeing the ending because, by all means, it was one of the best endings in a game I've ever seen. But the game meant more to me than just the story. I wanted to play the game more properly. I wanted to get better at manipulating the party AI to do what I wanted them to do. Yes, to the people listening to this, and to the people listening to this who are probably really shocked right now, yes, there was a point in time where even I was bad at playing Persona 3. But I just kept playing it. Like, even to this day, even after maxing out all the social links, even after completing the compendium and portable, even after fighting all the super bosses, I still learn new things about this game every time I replay it. Or hell, even every time I watch someone else play it. How long has it been? Like, over 6 years since I first played this game? This is the most amount of mileage I've ever gotten out of a game. The reason why I have trouble getting myself to get back to my Persona 5 Royal playthrough, it isn't because the game's bad. Like, by all means, like, Persona 5, good game. I just feel like I've already experienced pretty much everything I wanted with that game in particular. I did all the confidants, I did the third semester content. The only things I haven't done are the twin fights. The twin wardens fight, Lavenza and Jose. You can have a really good game, start to finish, but if I feel like there's nothing to come back to, or nothing that I want to re-experience, or to further explore because I couldn't get far enough into it the first time, I'm not going to become as attached to it. A good first impression is not what makes a game's value to me, especially coming from someone who wasn't, as established earlier, who wasn't allowed to buy games. Like, that's why these long-ass JRPGs appeal to me so much. I could get a lot of mileage out of them, and it's like I don't have to like dump money every few months or so on a new game that's like only gonna last me a couple weeks probably.
I can totally relate on that aspect. I forgot to like kind of comment on when you first brought it up, is that like I also felt like I missed a huge generation of games as well. Not necessarily for the same exact reason, but for me it was just that like there was a lot of like a pressure, not in a bad way necessarily, because I do also I am thankful to a lot of the technically peer pressure of my peers. But high school was very, for lack of a better word, competitive. I don't think anyone was necessarily ruthless by that nature, but just that everyone was very involved and very busy with a lot of different things. And I kind of I was surrounded, a lot of my friends were like that. And so it just kind of, for me, I miss basically my whole high school life, aside from summer and sometimes winter break. I felt that I did not I could not play games. And so yeah, so it wasn't until I had more time because of transverse myelitis to play games that I really got back into them, kind of feeling, because otherwise I just there would be one or two games from my childhood that I would maybe continue to bring back or play in high school, but for the most part it's I missed a vast majority of them. It was only thanks to summer, and a lot of friends would lend me games. I would either go to their house and watch them play games or play them together at their house, or it's I was very lucky enough they would lend me a game because they wouldn't be around for that summer for a certain other opportunity or experience. So I at least get I get that feeling, because it wasn't always an opportunity or availability for me to play them as well. Going off of what bubbletea was talking about, just wanting to continue to experience the game over and over, really nitpick, in a good way, I mean, really try to experience everything it has to offer. I'm kind of I lean more towards the character and story, how does this what does this say about people or society in general. I really like anything that has to do with the human condition. So I'm not always necessarily drawn too much to the gameplay for the sake of gameplay, but I like it when I feel it says something about the wider game. And so what I really loved about Persona 3 that really stood out to me is that I know that a lot of people get really mad at the party AI and stuff like that. I was shocked when I played it, because I was just wow, they are this is you can't just control them. And then I looked up later, because there's this one site on WordPress that kind of translated a lot of those interviews from that time, and it talks about how they purposefully wanted to make the AI kind of separate, right, for better or for worse, and that was amazing to me. I was just wow, I really respect this company or this team that they were willing to do that, to try something that would be so polarizing.
In the later games, at least, even though usually they're designed more for manual control, if the main character goes down, it is still a game over, and also they're the only one who has the wild card, so you still kind of get that sense of okay, this one is the viewpoint character, and they're kind of a little bit more important. But they definitely really hammered that in more with the whole the AI system, and like you said, people do tend to complain, but as bubbletea will probably point out, if you really engage with the tactics options they give you, the AI party members are not that bad.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this. I'm sorry to all the Persona 3 stans and fans. I regret in one of the first video I ever made for Persona 3, in defense of Bez, I was just I'm sorry I perpetuated the Mitsuru Karen thing. It's really not that. It's really it was a joke, but I was just oh shit, people think this. I'm so sorry.
Okay, side note though. I don't know how true this is. This is secondhand information, but I've heard that so the new THEORYYY attacks, and how every character charges up their THEORYYY meter differently. I've heard that the way Mitsuru's fills up is by her casting ailments. So this means that the player, who has direct control in Reload is going to be casting Marin Karen way more than the AI ever would.
Hilarious if that's true. Holy shit.
Like they literally turned the meme back on the player.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually one thing that I really like. This is something that I really love about remakes, and it's something that I'm excited to see. And this actually could segue into another topic as well. Is that oftentimes I love it when remakes clearly the people who worked on the remakes are aware of like all the memes in the fandom of the original, and they'll usually put some kind of reference in. Like off the top of my head, in the Advance Wars reboot camp, they made like one of the most famous meme quotes in that game, one of the characters asking what an airport is. They fully voiced acted that one line. They had to make sure that and I was just like, I was hoping they'd do that when I heard they'd be voice acting in that game, and I was not disappointed. And so if they do lean into and make Mitsuru's Marin Karen memes an actual part of her playstyle in the remake, that would be amazing. Maybe Akihiko fills his THEORYYY meter by waiting his turns and doing nothing.
Oh my god. Yes,
oh my god.
I've been waiting for this.
Oh my god, that's perfect. At least in terms of social links, I think another appeal to social links is that it's actually funny because it kind of goes both ways for both you and the character. So a detail that I kind of like is, while mechanically speaking it is a little inconvenient, but when you have a persona of the matching arcana with the social link you're hanging out with, you earn extra points with them.
Yeah.
And you know how a lot of the times the correct answer is usually what they want to hear. And a big part of that is because people, that includes myself and like 99% of people in general, they like to see a little bit of themselves in other people. And honestly, that kind of fits in with like the whole concept of social links and how they're split up into different arcana as well. Because you can look at a bunch of social links and relate them to aspects of yourself. Like I could kind of see a little bit of myself in Yuko, who just like didn't quite know what they were gonna do with their life and maybe weren't the most motivated. I could see myself in Mamoru, who had to like put his dream on the sideline, basically just turning it into a hobby and like giving it up professionally to like get a job and you know take on other responsibilities. And
for like his family, right?
Yeah, and part of me wants to, I don't know, maybe this was completely intentional, because like, you know how the different arcana in themselves already kind of represent certain stages in the fool's journey, or just like sort of the journey of life in general. So this could have all been like geniusly intentional, or maybe just a happy coincidence. I don't know. And another sort of aspect
it's intentional, honestly.
Another interesting aspect too. Okay, so an interesting aspect of the main cast that I like, and this isn't gonna be like anything about their like, I've already talked ad nauseum about like their character arcs in my own videos, and I'm not about to get started again here, but something that I like about the main cast. So from both a gameplay and sort of a metaphorical perspective, I actually think that the party members only having one persona is better, because I don't know, in Persona 1 and 2, like sure, different characters were compatible with different arcana, so there was like there were like some restraints so that every character didn't feel the same. But at the same time, it's like you have 5 characters, and each of them can use like at least 5 arcana, and that's enough flexibility to the point where it's just kind of like where it kind of just like dilutes.
Like they don't feel as unique.
It dilutes
right? Is that what you mean?
It dilutes like their identity, at least in a gameplay sense. But like in Persona 3, not only does it sort of shape characters into their own unique roles in combat, but it also kind of reflects like, or emphasizes that you really are just seeing things from the protagonist's perspective, because realistically speaking, the when you're talking and mingling or interacting with other people, realistically speaking, you are only going to see one persona. Like they're only going to present one of their personas to you. So it's not so much that like, other people don't have multiple personas or different masks that they wear or anything like that. It's just that they only predominantly present one to you. And only you, like the protagonist, are even sort of aware at all of like the many personas that lie within yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Could I just cut it in here for 1 second? I'm actually really glad you said that, because I'm going to cite again that art book interview again. That is literally developer intended. In that interview, like the developers of Persona 3 said, that is exactly what they intended. That the reason why the other party members only have one persona is because you're seeing things from the protagonist's eyes, and that is the persona that they present to you. And because of it, that's the only one you see.
Yeah, so that's really
everything everything you just said, bubbletea, like that is all literally like developer intended canon.
That's their intention for sure. Yeah, I can see. So like going back to what you said about how like P1, because I also just finished at least like the first part of like the P2 duology as well. It's kind of just like It is true that yes, like the point of the like fool's journey, because like, you know, this isn't like a huge like this is scientifically proven. It's more of just like this is a sort of philosophical life sort of like lesson you can take away if you want to, is that like everybody is their own fool of their own journey. So in life you're probably going to encounter like every situation of every arcana in some way. Like you'll be able to relate in some way to like each arcana like at some point. Is kind of what the point of the thing is. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, the interest. So to go back to P1 and P2, it's just like, so technically yes, like you aren't just like one arcana, right? Like it's like you are a lot of them because you have a lot of different personas. So that's why like P1 and P2 is if you want to call it, a little bit more accurate in that regard, that like all the people have like certain arcana that they are more inclined towards, but there's still multiple ones, right? Like it's like 4 or 5 that they're like, you could attribute, they can use but in a great way, right?
Yeah, you could attribute like multiple you could attribute different aspects to yourself in all the social links, including the ones that you don't like.
Going back to what Klingy said about like the developers, I think it was very intentional to move away from that P1 and P2 like exploration of the arcana to one where it's just like our focus is very much on like the protagonist perspective in particular. And now that means that like as is in life, only you yourself know how many personas you have. This is like said a lot in a lot of different cultures, is that like at the end of the day, for the vast majority of us, no one is ever going to know your entire true self. Only you will. Because even to like friends and family, like to your closest friends and family, there are certain sides, I think, of anybody, if they're being honest with themselves, that they won't show. I think a lot of people don't want to think about it or admit that, because I think they want to like they want to say that like, oh, if it's my parents or my significant other or like my closest friends, they know every single aspect of me, but it's like, do you really talk about every single thing you've ever thought about and struggled with to them? I don't know. I think a lot of us would, if we're being honest, we would say no.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was kind of, maybe that was on ending on a sort of like dark note, but that's how I see things at the very least. Maybe other people don't have that perspective.
I mean, that's not necessarily a bad or dark thing.
Yeah, like it's just, it's kind of like a truth, right? Like it's going back to like just a lot of P3 or Persona in general themes. It's just like, it's not necessarily, right, yeah, like a bad thing. It's like society wants to think of it as a bad thing when it's just like, it's not really. It just is. It's a part of life.
Well, I mean, there's all this speculative fiction of like that goes into like how horrifying it would actually be if you had the power to read everybody's thoughts around you and hear what everyone around you was like everything they were thinking at every time, and how actually genuinely disturbing that would be.
Yeah.
So
like it drives those like the people who have that superpower in some of those stories like insane, right?
Yeah,
like
they usually don't take it well.
Yeah. So that's what I guess we'll be in like the final biggest section of this episode is just like, what do you guys hope to see out of Reload, especially in regards to like, because all of us know a lot of Persona 3 inside and out, like what would you maybe hope to see change, and what are you like hoping that is not changed, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if I could just go first. So for what I don't want to see changed is the ending. Or if they do have a new ending, at least include the original ending, because as bubbletea has said earlier, like, the ending of Persona 3, I think we can all agree, is one of the best endings we've experienced in a video game, and it's just the way that it relates to all of the themes and stuff, I'm just genuinely hoping, also, when I first heard the credits music for the first time, I may have heard bits of it out of context, but when you hear Persona 3's credits music in context, especially if you know what the lyrics mean, it just, and also the fact that...
I just want to really quick say, since we're on this topic and this final section, let's just open this up to all spoilers. If you want,
from the spoilers.
From the original.
I mean, I don't really need to fully spoil. The only thing that I will spoil is what hit me hardest about the credits theme, and it made the ending so much more impactful, is when I realized that the main tune of the credits theme is actually the Happy Social Link theme. Like, that when it hits you, that the generic Happy Social Link theme is the Memories of You leitmotif. That was the Memories of You leitmotif all along. And that just made the song, I'm just like, oh my god, wow, that's what this song is saying.
Same in the school, right? The final day at school.
Yeah.
It's the same motif.
It's like, that is like what Memories of You is that like, yes, this sort of, this life might be ending, but like, what gave it meaning was all of those joyful times that you spent with friends and all of that, like all of those little moments. And it makes things kind of hit harder when you go back and you're like, oh yeah, like that, because like you just hear the social link, I think it's just called Joy. The sort of regular social link theme, you hear it so much to the point where you're almost tired of it by the end of the game, and then it just hits you so hard when you realize, oh wow, that song was more important than Like, it's like that's just, yeah, that was a great feeling. Although I will say, in terms of like just segue into things that I don't want changed, I hate the fact that the bad ending still plays that song. The bad ending's credit should not play Memories of You. It just completely ruins it, and it doesn't fit that ending.
Yeah, I can see what you mean by that. I still think, like, yeah, the bad ending is really cool. I feel like it's actually kind of dissonant in that way, though. To be honest,
yeah,
like I like how it's kind of just like you, like, for the vast majority of people, if they get that ending, they're gonna be like, wait a minute, did I fuck up? And then they hear that song and they're like, wait a minute, this isn't right. This is definitely not right. Why are they playing this song like this when the vibes are not right? I did something wrong.
It's more because I just personally love the feeling of hearing that song for the first time in the real ending.
Sure. Like in the the intended ending at the
intended
least.
context.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I see what you mean.
And just like one final thing, and then I'll leave it over to you. One final thing that and this is the more serious answer for what I don't want changed. For what I do want changed. So what I do want changed, and this is honestly one of the biggest reasons I've wanted a Persona 3 remake. Add platonic roots for the girls. It is one of the things that has annoyed me the most about Persona 3, and it's why I find it such a hard game. Like, the thing that annoys me about Persona 3 is that, like, I love its story, characters, gameplay. It is, like, it is the game that I like the most out of the Hashino trilogy. But it's also a really hard game to recommend to newcomers because the social link system is just so complicated and obtuse, and if you don't know what you're doing, you are going to reverse so many people. But the other thing is that if you do want to max out every social link, you are forced to romance all of the girls at the same time, and it's just like, why? It's just really just frustrating to me, especially because, like, individually, I like all of the girls' romance roots, but, like, having to, in the context of having to cheat on them all at the same time if you want all the personas, it's just like, and I've been interested to see if they, like, I hope they do, but, like, how the platonic roots would actually be written. Like, how different would they be? Because I'd imagine you wouldn't
because we don't get, wait a minute, did Portable doesn't let you say, the male MC say no?
So I believe
there is no,
you're allowed
in Portable, there is no platonic root for any of the social...
Male MC.
There's no platonic roots, but you're no longer, like, penalized. They got rid of the jealousy mechanic.
Yeah, so there's no jealousy, but you don't have
it's still, like,
roots.
it's always romance at the end, though, still?
Yeah.
That's... okay, wow. I honestly, I thought, wow, I didn't know that about the male MC... Portable
they did actually change. Apparently, Yukari no longer has the reverse hug in Portable.
Oh, boo!
Wait, what?
They did.
Boo! Why did they do that?
I've heard that. Yeah, they did change some of the social links for the male protagonist a little bit, but they definitely didn't add platonic roots.
Oh, Reload! Please don't change that.
Who knows? Maybe this is actually just a characteristic of the main character. They just wanted to make clear that yes, he is not above doing that.
Yeah, like,
well,
he's a little not socially.
I'm joking. By the way,
I know you're joking. But, like, when I did my playthrough of Persona 3 on my channel, that's actually exactly how I headcanon the protagonist, because it's just, like, it's so hard to, like, take it seriously having to romance everyone otherwise, so I'm just like, yeah, the MC just kind of cheats on everyone. That's just, he's just doing that now.
He's not used to the fact that's, like, this is not what you would do, because he's not used to, like, having that many connections in the first place. It's like, no, this is not how things should end with every single person. With every single girl. Just saying.
My personal headcanon is just sort of like... when he talks to... It's just sort of the way he talks to, like, all the people in his life, actually. Most of the time, he just kind of, like, goes with the flow. And then it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of somehow ends up that way with the girl developing feelings for him, and he just like doesn't do anything to resist it.
It's one of those things where it's like people
it's not necessarily that he's actively pursuing all of them.
I'm more of just the fact where it's like, you know how they said the devs said that like they weren't expecting people to finish every social link?
Yeah,
there's that aspect of it too, where I'm just like, it's a little bit of like you can kind of tell maybe that it's just like they were okay with the harem route, but at the same time it's just like they might have thought, oh, people are literally maxing every single girl? Oh shit, I just thought people would choose which one and just go with that.
No, that's how I'm pretty sure it happened. Like they said in interviews that they didn't even know that maxing all social links would be possible. They didn't think it would be possible until people did it.
They were told that it wouldn't be possible, but then like of course the players figured out how to do all of them in one playthrough.
Well, that's kind of typically how it works in like other romance sims, right? Where it's just kind of like where it's kind of like you have the option to spend time with any one potential partner, but the only one that really matters is the one that you progress the furthest with.
Yeah, like to quote like what Klingy was saying earlier about like how it's kind of hard to recommend Persona 3 as it currently is, like Fez, to like maybe newer players to like the JRPG scene and stuff, is that like going off of what you said, like people joke about how like Persona is just a visual novel, you know, like the freaking meme is just a VN with like some gameplay, and it's just like the funny thing is that visual novels are kind of like the epitome of like that was where like the harem roots were established for a lot of like the key. I don't know if you guys remember like or know about like the key VNs or the key anime. They're like Air,
it rings a bell.
And like Clannad, those ones where it's just like technically once you choose a route, that's the only route that VN will follow until that specific ending before you like replay the game again and choose another person's route. But I thought how like I think Persona like took probably inspiration from a lot of those, like the Fate visual novel, the Key visual novel, a lot of those like harem visual novels where it's just like they just kind of put that into Persona. And then maybe they were just saying like, oh, we thought our audience is used to that, right? But like now that the series is even bigger and has like appealed to more people ever since like P4 and P5, I think they've kind of realized that like, we are more popular than just the like super like otaku obsessed anime-ish JRPG fans.
But I think it to me goes a little beyond that though, because original Persona 3 also had a whole lot of really complicated hidden mechanics, like that you like if you didn't see another social link for 60 days, they would reverse. If you double booked on a Sunday, they'd reverse. If you and the thing with that makes the jealousy system so complicated is that unlike in Persona 4 or 5, where when the girls go romantic is a little bit more clear, in P3 you've got Chihiro who goes romantic at rank 5, and then you've got other people who go romantic at rank 7 or 8, and it's difficult to predict when the social links will turn romantic, and because it's forced, suddenly you're in jealousy mode maybe a lot earlier than you expected, and then the timer gets cut in half every time you see somebody else, and then you have to figure out which of the girls trigger jealousy, because some don't, like I don't think Aigis does, and the ones who aren't the protagonist's age don't, but like, so it all just gets like, I believe at one point Kenji tries to give you a tutorial on it, but it's kind of easy to miss.
Yeah, he has exactly one line of dialogue about it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But it's just like I don't like so yeah, basically I don't just mean like all of the harem stuff and all of that. I mean the fact that like I do think that P4 and 5 simplified the social link system too much. I do think reverse and break should still exist, but I'm liking if developer like comments on Reload or any indication, they're gonna keep reverse and break, but they're also going to streamline a lot of the other, you know, the backdoor stuff that you wouldn't know about without a guide.
I see. Yeah. I get
Alright.
I get it. How about you, bubbletea? Anything?
So, alright, so this is probably... So my answer to these questions are probably the shortest. Alright, so in terms of changes that I want, more like daytime activities. Actually, like, even before that, because, like, I don't know, your daytime slot's mostly going to be taken up by social links, so daytime activities aren't as huge of a... They're not, like, as, crucial, but definitely more nighttime activities, because nighttime activities in both Persona 3 and the original Persona 4 were very limited, and you'd run out of stuff to do once you maxed out your night social links and your social parameters. Yeah. Based on what they've shown in previews, though, it seems like that won't be much of an issue, or at least not as much of an issue. I'm especially excited for, what are they called? Link episodes. You know, some more some more like character-specific, exchanges. And the nice thing about these, and the way that they've approached these, is that these are, like, completely optional. Like, it doesn't fundamentally change the story or the dynamic of the... It doesn't really change the dynamic of the party at all. Because I do kind of, like, relate more to the, sort of... I don't know how you would describe it. Sort of like, the more arm's length nature of, like, C's as a group. And same, sort of just like, and needing to gradually them gradually warm up to each other more. I do like that better. And what I'm hoping is that these Link episodes, just in the nature of being optional as well, is just like they sort of preserve that a bit more. Cause like worst case scenario, it becomes Persona 4 and everyone's just like, I don't know, everyone's just going to Okina City like every week or something, and it's just like, oh boy,
super extrovert, like.
Everyone just suddenly becomes super extroverted. Like, that would actually kill me. But I don't think they're going to do that, at least not to that extremity.
I got the feeling the Link episodes, from what I've sort of seen of the teasers of them, they just seem to give like more insight into like that character, not necessarily like it's a group bonding event, right? They seem to be more, at least for the most part, like, or am I thinking something else? I might be thinking of like the other activities, like the gardening and the cooking and stuff. Like those the daily activities.
those are more one-on-one, which I also think is a bit more appropriate. Cause like you're not gonna like, when you're kind of shy like me in real life, it's like you're going to sort of like, you're gonna break it down like maybe one person at a time, or warm up to them like maybe one person at a time. You're not just gonna walk up to a group and be like, hey,
I can understand that, definitely. Everybody is different in that regard. Some people are just like, hi, I'm this person, what are you guys doing? Can I try? Right? Like, and then some people, it's just like, it's easier to like get to maybe know something like through just a single person first.
All right, in terms of stuff I don't want changed, the story, both the main story and the social link storylines, it doesn't seem like they're really going to change that all like much, if at all. Unless they do some twist extra ending, which which I'm not saying is going to happen, but we can't rule out the possibility.
I'm that person who's just like, I would be open to it, but you know. I understand.
Secondly, this second one is like really up in the air. The challenge, just like, I don't know, because I genuinely
gameplay, like bosses and stuff.
Like even to this, like even to this day, like even after learning like 99% of the exploits in Persona 3, like there are still certain points in the game, like very specific challenging fights that I still genuinely get like a good I don't know,
challenge,
like
rush.
A good thrilling challenge out of it. Yeah. And just the overall identity of the game. Persona 3 like on a very surface level understanding of Persona 3, like it's like dark, oppressive atmosphere, and you know, despite having the oppressive atmosphere at times, is a very surprisingly cozy game for like 99% of it. I remember chilling between classes, knocking out a few floors of Tartarus, or maybe doing a couple social link ranks, and I don't really want that to change. And again, from the looks of it, it doesn't look like that aspect of the game is really going to change. Most of what I've seen seems to be pretty ideal for me. A lot of signs seem to be pointing to a remake that I'm going to enjoy. Except for one thing. It seems as though they've confirmed recently that... I don't know, actually no, it's still a little bit up in the air, but like... I don't know, there seems to be a lot of evidence pointing to... There seems to be a lot of evidence pointing towards the protagonist only being able to use one-handed swords. Because like just the way the shop menu is organized, like, oh, when you purchase weapons, it's like the menus are split up by character, or like the sub-menus are classified by character. And I like it's still very, I don't know, like very slim chances that the protagonist will be able to use all weapons like in the original. Although there is like one piece of dialogue with Akihiko that may implicate that like, oh, they can teach you how to use their weapon type. Although I'm a bit skeptical of that. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. The changes to weapon fusion they're doing are also a little bit weird. You have to use heart items and gems to craft weapons instead of personas, which which honestly doesn't sound nearly as cool. Because like weapon fusion is literally just an idea that they sort of adapted from the larger Megami Tensei series at large, because other like both mainline and some spin-off Megami Tensei games they don't call it weapon fusion, they call it sword fusion. They call it sword fusion. And it's just like just the idea of turning your persona like an actual aspect of yourself into a literal weapon just sounds so fucking metal. And then they had to change it, and I'm not too sure how I'm gonna feel about it. It has potential, like if it provides enough variety and like interesting, meaningful gameplay decision making, it could be good. It has potential, but it could also end up going in a direction I'm not gonna enjoy as much as the old system.
Yeah, okay. That's too bad. For everybody who really enjoys like the old weapon fusion, or like the ability to use different weapons, for your sake, yes, I hope that it's a possibility still. You know, like even if it's like unlocked in a different way, and it's not just like automatically there, like, you know, hopefully, because you know, as you said, like for the most part, it seems like it's gonna be pretty faithful to just the fans original, right? Like P3, as in like P3 Fez and that kind of thing, I mean. But yeah, you know, like you guys probably know me, like I'm the one who like made the freaking theory, like for the sake of theories and also for like the I don't know, I think as a person I've always been more a little bit like open to like like if you can make it interesting or cool and it still fits, like hell yeah, like that sounds kind of cool. I'm that person who's just like, are they gonna add like a February in between? Because there's a month in between.
Like, they add a
we fast forwarded.
They add a February, and it's just like, oh, well, actually, there were like 10 more Arcana shadows you have to hunt down, because like it ends, because like in the original story it ends with death, but then it's just like, oh, well, now you gotta go after like the star Arcana and the sun and the moon and the Aeon. Like, what if like, they just did
Temperance, Tower, all of those other ones, star, moon, sun. Like, that
would
Devil.
That would honestly be pretty funny.
To me, I think like symbolically there's a way to like make it so that it's still like the ending is still the same, but like the feeling of it is a little different. Because like to me there's a way to incorporate, like, because people keep bringing up the like Liz is very sus in like a lot of, not just like Arena, but also in like the movies. Not that like the Atlus team was in charge completely of the movies, right? But like they're clearly incorporating other aspects of what the movie did in certain ways, as in like trying to like make, I think, in my opinion, like make Ken and the Shinji thing a little bit more like fleshed out. And so because of that, the Liz thing is also very sus to me. I think that there's a way to like make it so that you still ultimately have the ending where like, right, like we're in spoiler territory now, he freaking dies and he is still dead, but you can somehow at least maybe like free the soul part. Like, and also restore the memories of like the party members sooner. So it's not like, oh my god, we miss saying goodbye, right? In the final day. It's like if you're able to recover the memory sooner, they're able to maybe like enjoy that aspect of each other and like the MC to its fullest extent before he's gone. Kind of thing. Anyway, it fits in like the mythological lore if they want to go that route.
I will say from a meta standpoint, I do think it's a little sus that Elizabeth is still voiced by Tara Platt in English.
Yeah, I still have like, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I've been, because like I've been feeling like not the greatest, but like I'm hoping before Reload is at least out, or like within the first week that it's out, I'm still trying to do one last like, this is the last like in the movies and in the dancing games and like in the opening, the Reload opening, like these are all the sus things about Liz. Just saying. Is she planning something? But yeah, sorry, I tangent a lot all the time. I guess to like finally close up, because this is kind of long, what are you guys hoping for in the sense of like how this game, how big it will be? Maybe like do you think it will be only like big in like the JRPG sphere, or do you think it has some of the potential to be sort of big in the way like P5 was like, what, you know, like, wow.
I think it has P5 potential. Hell, like it's already sort of like demonstrating it. Like you've got all these different advertisements and collabs that Persona 3 is doing. Like they're doing a train collab, dude. You can ride a train, and the Persona 3 cast is gonna be like plastered all over the side of it of that train. You can go
so cool.
Like you can go to London and have a fucking Persona 3 meal. Like holy shit, I want a Persona 3 meal.
Yeah, like legit, it's funny. Oh my god, I want to comment on this really quickly. It's crazy to me that like I grew I grew up in a place where like a lot of the collab stuff is done nowadays, and it is kind of funny to me that I'm just like, dang, they never did that when I was around there, and I don't live there anymore, and now they're doing all the cool collab shit. Well, damn.
Furthermore, in terms of like potential like pop off, like if I don't know, if the game pops off, we might finally get an English dub of the movie someday. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be sick. I would love that.
And here's the thing though. I'm not even like the hugest fan of the movies. Like at least not.
Sure, yeah.
At least not like the. At least not like the first three. I do think the fourth one's really good. But I would, but even so, like I would still love to see like the new cast dub these movies.
Yeah, that would be sick. Yeah, I think the movie do have their own place, but yeah, for sure. Like I don't think it beats the game at all. Like I think it's one of those things where it's like the movies can add to your enjoyment of the thing, but ultimately it's like you should experience the game's story or narrative.
Dude, now that Persona 3 Reload's coming out, people will finally stop fucking saying like, oh, don't play the game, it's boring, just watch the movies. Because the movies, like, they highlight very specific key moments well, and they even like handle Ken's I don't know. They handle part of Ken's character arc better. Although they kind of like skip out on the very end of his character arc, which is really dumb and stupid, and I really did not like that.
With Akihiko and everything.
They handle like very few select things better than the games. But like at the end of the day, the movies really are just like very select moments throughout the game, and it just like I don't know, like they skip out on, I don't know, part of what makes Persona 3 and like the characters feel genuine is the time passage, and just like,
yeah, sure, the calendar system kind of gets lost in the movies, right? Also just showing the protagonist spending time like with people who aren't Cs, because like social links are really just they're gimped in the movies. Like most of them they're just cameos,
like, appear for
right?
Most of them appear for like
Easter
2 seconds.
eggs.
I think like the social link character who got the most lines, from what I remember, like I think fuck dude, like the social link character who, at least to my recollection, had the most lines was fucking Chihiro. And she had like she had like 5 lines.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because like the rest of the time they're just like seen on screen. Like you see Kanji, you see Toshi, I call him Toshi, with Chihiro like doing his stuff. Like you see Bebe, you see the old couple, but like you just see them. Like they're not. It's just kind of like a hey, if you know, you know, but like if you don't, like
Persona
no one really
fucking
cares.
yeah. Like imagine like trying to experience Persona without the social links.
But just like in general, like award shows or nominations for things, like are you guys like hoping to see it in like all these different categories? Hell yeah. Like do you feel like it has a shot?
Well, I mean it's just the thing is, Persona always gets nominated, usually, like at least the mainline Persona entries, they generally always get nominated, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it everywhere. But I mean, I'd like it if it could actually beat like a Western AAA game for once.
Yes. Honestly, I don't
some
like
category at least, right?
Like, I don't know. I don't really care too much about game award type stuff, but you know, that would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
regardless of what the general public has to say, at least in my book, fucking game of the year, game of all time, fucking
Yeah, no, I
Persona
totally
3
feel
Reload. Go play it.
I think we're all pretty like all three of us are pretty much like we don't really give a shit like what like at the end of the day like what everyone else thinks. But would it be cool to have it like win something? Yeah, we would take that for sure, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, I can see Reload or potentially, I don't know, Metaphor, but I think I'm too attached to Reload to kind of see that as that's going to be my game of year.
Metaphor has a lot of potential. Like when I first saw it, like they didn't really show enough to pique my interest, but now that they've shown more, it's like, okay, now you have my attention.
Right.
Like, it definitely has my attention a lot more now.
I'm really hyped for Metaphor. Like, my hot take is, like, I don't care when we get Persona 6, because Metaphor is basically just Persona 6.
Oh my god.
I mean, yeah, the project is basically being run by the three Persona horsemen.
Yes. But anyway, you know, thank you so much for joining me, guys, on this like really cool opening episode to our Road to Reload. We will be back with a few more as we go through the actual game once it comes out. But yeah, I'd like to, you know, like, where can people find you? And like, what do you guys do? Like, time to chill.
I'm sure at least like 5 of you watching this are familiar with me. I have a YouTube channel. I make videos of varying quality.
They're good, yeah.
I made a 2-hour like, if you wanna hear my thoughts on more of like an actual sort of game analysis of Persona 3, then like just watch my 2-hour-long video. Here I just kind of talked more about like the more personal aspect of it, which I feel like I didn't really expand on enough in the original video, but that's not a bad thing, you know? I might talk about it more like when I make the Reload video, because I really don't see them changing much about the story, and thus there won't be much to really expand upon with the story in that video.
And you should be able to find my channel just by searching BigKlingy. Depending on when this goes up, I will either be about to start or will have already started a playthrough of Persona 5 Strikers, which I've been looking forward to because it is a game in the Persona series that is it was a game I did not expect to like as much as I did. Like, I know a lot of people don't really have time for like sort of traditional like full like Let's Plays now, but I will say, if anybody wants to see like my one on the original P3, it is probably the thing I've got up on my channel that I am the most proud of, like, to this day. And so yeah, I will probably be doing some content on Reload. I've never streamed before. I'm gonna try and stream Reload. I'll be trying to get a
so
test
cool.
stream.
But take care, guys. Enjoy Persona 3 Reload when it comes out. See you guys. Bye. Thank you for listening.